You're dead to this company. My brother roared, slamming his fist on my boardroom table while armed security pinned my arms behind my back. Blood trickled from my lip where James's signet ring had connected moments earlier. Through the glass walls, I could see my employees watching in horror as I, their founder, was being treated like a criminal. The worst part? My wife Elizabeth standing behind him, clutching documents with my forged signature, a cold smile playing on her lips. 15 years of building an empire, betrayed in 15 brutal minutes. I walked through the parking lot in a daze, keys dangling uselessly in my hand. The executive parking spot with my name on it already had a maintenance worker scraping off the letters. Michael Everett, being erased letter by letter. The maintenance guy wouldn't look me in the eye as I passed. My phone buzzed. A text from Elizabeth, my wife of 18 years. We need to talk about what happens next. What happens next? As if this were some planned transition and not a corporate execution. I ignored it and tried calling Sarah, my personal assistant for the past 7 years. Straight to voicemail. I tried my CFO. No answer. My head of operations. Nothing. It was as if I'd been erased from existence in the span of a single meeting. I drove home in silence, my mind racing through the events of the morning. The emergency board meeting that James, my older brother and COO, had called. The stack of documents presented. The accusations of mismanagement. The revelation that somehow, over the past year, my 51% controlling stake had been diluted to 38%. And worst of all, Elizabeth sitting there beside James, her face a mask of practiced concern as she voted her shares I had gifted her on our 10th anniversary, against me. When I pulled into our driveway, Elizabeth's Tesla was gone. The house felt unnaturally quiet. In the kitchen, where we'd had breakfast together just 4 hours earlier, sat a manila envelope with my name on it. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by her, and a note, "Your things are in the guest room. Please be gone by Friday." My legs gave out. I collapsed onto a kitchen chair, the granite countertop cold under my palms as I steadied myself. 18 years of marriage. 15 years building Everett Construction from a two-man operation to a regional powerhouse with 200 employees. All gone in a single morning. I reached for my phone to call my attorney, only to discover my banking app showing access denied. My cards declined when I tried to order takeout. They had been planning this for how long? Weeks? Months? Years? The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't an impulsive betrayal. This was a calculated amputation. The doorbell rang. When I opened it, a courier handed me another envelope. Inside was a restraining order preventing me from entering Everett Construction premises or contacting any employees. The document listed James as CEO and Elizabeth as chairman of the board. It was dated 3 days ago. I sat on my living room floor, soon to be Elizabeth's living room, surrounded by the life we'd built together, and felt something crystallize inside me. A cold, clear purpose I hadn't felt since those early days struggling to land our first major contract. I may have lost the first battle, but there was going to be a war. And wars require strategy, intelligence, and most importantly, allies. I reached for my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in years, Jonathan Price. Before he became one of the city's most ruthless corporate attorneys, he was the client who gave my fledgling company its first major contract when no one else would take a chance on us. I owed my success to him, and now I needed him more than ever. "Michael," he answered on the second ring. "I was wondering when you'd call." "You've heard?" I asked, momentarily stunned. "Portland's a small town when it comes to business. Let me guess. Ambush board meeting, security escort, frozen accounts. And divorce papers," I added. There was a pause. "That's a new wrinkle. Meet me at Sullivan's in an hour. Come in through the kitchen. There are eyes everywhere now." Sullivan's Steakhouse was nearly empty at 3 p.m. I slipped in through the service entrance as instructed and found Jonathan in a private dining room, a spread of files already on the table. "Before we start," he said, sliding a burner phone across the table, "use this from now on. Your regular phone, email, cloud accounts, consider them compromised." I nodded, still struggling to process how quickly my life had imploded. "I've been tracking some unusual movements at Everett for about 6 months," Jonathan continued, opening a folder. "Started when I heard James was meeting with Westlake Investments. Thought it was strange since they're your direct competitors." 6 months? I echoed. "You've been tracking my company for 6 months and didn't tell me?" Jonathan fixed me with a hard stare. "Michael, I've known something was off for longer than that, but you wouldn't have believed me." Every time I hinted that James or Elizabeth might not have your best interests at heart, you shut it down. You kept saying James was just ambitious and Elizabeth was supporting your growth strategy. The words hit me like a slap. He was right. I had dismissed every warning sign, attributed every red flag to stress or normal business friction. I had been a willing participant in my own downfall. What do they have? I asked finally. Jonathan slid over a document. Based on the SEC filings I pulled this morning, they've been systematically transferring shares through a network of shell companies. Most registered in your name but controlled by them through some clever legal footwork. Your signature is on everything. I shook my head. That's impossible. I never signed any. Then it hit me. The endless stack of documents Elizabeth would bring home for me to sign. The routine corporate housekeeping that James insisted needed my signature right away. The times Sarah, my assistant, would rush in with papers that just needed a quick signature before I headed to meetings. Jonathan nodded, seeing the realization dawn on my face. They've been planning this for at least 2 years, possibly longer. And Michael, he hesitated, there's something else. The company financials that were filed with the SEC this morning don't match the numbers you showed your investors last quarter. My blood ran cold. They're setting me up for securities fraud. That would be my guess. Get you out, make you the scapegoat for any financial irregularities, and ride off into the sunset with your company. I ran my hands through my hair, my mind racing. I need to warn people. The employees, our clients. No. Jonathan cut me off sharply. Right now, you do nothing. You contact no one. As far as the world is concerned, you're licking your wounds and contemplating your future. We need to gather evidence before they can destroy it. What evidence? They've locked me out of everything. A small smile played at the corner of Jonathan's mouth. Not everything. Tell me, did Elizabeth handle the home Wi-Fi setup, or did you? I did. She's terrible with technology. And your home security system? The cameras, the cloud storage. A glimmer of hope sparked. All me. I have admin access from my personal laptop, which is still at the house. Good. And does the system cover your home office? I nodded slowly, beginning to see where he was headed. Elizabeth and James had several strategy sessions there over the past few months. Said they were planning my birthday party. Jonathan's smile grew wider. Well, let's see what kind of party they were really planning, shall we? The next 48 hours passed in a blur of legal maneuvers and evidence gathering. I retrieved my laptop before Elizabeth could think to lock me out of the house. The security footage was a goldmine. Elizabeth and James in my home office, discussing share transfers, reviewing documents with my forged signature, even laughing about how blind I was to their scheme. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. On the second night, as I sat in my cheap motel room combing through years of financial records, my burner phone rang with an unknown number. Mr. Everett? It's Sarah, my assistant. One of the conspirators. I almost hung up. Please don't hang up, she said, as if reading my mind. I didn't know what they were planning until it was too late. They told me it was a restructuring, that you had approved everything. By the time I realized what was really happening, they already had too much leverage. What kind of leverage? I asked, suspicious but curious. They found out about my sister's immigration status. Threatened to report her if I didn't cooperate. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Mr. Everett, but I think I can help make it right. How? I have a flash drive. James and Elizabeth don't know I was recording some of their meetings in your office over the past year. I thought the discussions seemed strange, so I started documenting everything. My heart raced. Where are you now? In the parking garage at the office. Level 3. I can't stay long. There's a security sweep every 20 minutes. I was already grabbing my jacket. I'll be there in 15 minutes. The parking garage was dimly lit and eerily empty when I arrived. I parked my rental car away from the cameras and took the stairs to level 3, where Sarah's modest Honda was idling in a corner spot. She rolled down her window as I approached, her face pale with stress. Mr. Everett, It's okay, Sarah, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Just tell me what you have. She handed me a small flash drive. It's everything. Audio recordings of their meetings. Screenshots of documents before they were altered. Emails they thought were deleted. She paused. There's something else. They're announcing a major acquisition at the Portland Business Leadership Awards next week. It's the Westlake deal. They're using your company's cash reserves to buy out your biggest competitor. The Portland Business Leadership Awards. where Everett Construction was being honored for Family Business of the Year, an award I had been nominated for before the coup. Will you be there? I asked. She nodded. James insists the entire executive team attend to show unity during the transition. A plan began forming in my mind. Sarah, would you be willing to testify to what you've seen and heard? Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. If my sister is protected, yes. Jonathan Price is one of the best immigration attorneys in the state. Your sister will be fine. I stepped back from the car. I'll be in touch through a secure channel. And Sarah? Thank you. As she drove away, I clutched the flash drive like a lifeline. For the first time since being escorted from my office, I felt a flicker of hope. They had taken everything from me, but they had missed something crucial: the digital breadcrumbs of their betrayal, meticulously collected by the very person they had coerced into helping them. The next 5 days were a whirlwind of legal strategy sessions with Jonathan, carefully documented evidence, and discreet meetings with key allies. We brought in a forensic accountant who confirmed what we suspected. James and Elizabeth had been siphoning company funds into shell corporations for over a year, disguising the transactions as legitimate business expenses. The flash drive was even more valuable than I had hoped. Sarah had recorded over a dozen meetings where James and Elizabeth explicitly discussed their plan to oust me, forge my signature, and manipulate share distributions. In one particularly damning recording, Elizabeth could be heard laughing about how I worked so hard to build something for us to steal. Each revelation was a fresh wound, but also hardened my resolve. This wasn't just about getting my company back anymore. It was about justice. The night before the awards ceremony, I met with Jonathan to finalize our strategy. We sat in his office, reviewing the legal injunctions we would file the moment our plan was executed. Are you sure you want to do it this way? Jonathan asked. We have enough evidence for a criminal case. We could let the authorities handle it. I shook my head. That would take months, maybe years. By then, there might not be a company left to save. No, it has to be tomorrow. Public. Decisive. Jonathan nodded, understanding in his eyes. Your security credentials for the venue's AV system are confirmed. Sarah's testimony is recorded and ready to play. The judge is on standby for the emergency injunctions. He paused. What about Elizabeth? Are you prepared to face her? I looked out the window at the Portland skyline, the buildings illuminated against the night sky. Somewhere out there was the house we had shared, the life I had thought we were building together. She chose her side, I said finally. Now I'm choosing mine. The Portland Business Leadership Awards were held in the grand ballroom of the Heathman Hotel, a sea of round tables filled with the city's business elite in formal attire. From my position in the service corridor, I watched through a crack in the door as James and Elizabeth worked the room, accepting congratulations on the Family Business of the Year award Everett Construction would receive later that evening. They looked triumphant. James in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, shaking hands and slapping backs like he'd built the company with his own 2 hands. Elizabeth radiant in a red gown, playing the role of supportive business partner to perfection. It made my stomach turn. My phone vibrated. A text from Sarah confirming she was in position at the AV control room, ready to execute our plan when I gave the signal. Jonathan was seated at a table near the stage, legal documents at the ready. The MC called for everyone to take their seats as the ceremony began. I watched from the shadows as several awards were presented, the minutes ticking by until finally. And now, for our Family Business of the Year award, please welcome to the stage James and Elizabeth Everett of Everett Construction. A round of applause filled the room as they made their way to the podium, beaming with false modesty. James adjusted the microphone. Thank you for this tremendous honor, he began. Everett Construction has always been a family business at its core, built on trust, integrity, and vision. The irony was almost too much to bear. I sent the text to Sarah, now. The large screens flanking the stage suddenly changed from the awards ceremony logo to a video feed. James and Elizabeth in my home office, hunched over documents. James's voice echoed through the ballroom speakers. Once we get control of his shares, we'll force him out at the next board meeting. He'll never see it coming. Elizabeth's laughter. He worked so hard to build something for us to steal. It's almost sad. The ballroom fell silent. James stopped mid-sentence, his face draining of color as he stared up at the screens. Elizabeth grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with panic. I stepped out from the service corridor and walked slowly toward the stage, all eyes in the room turning to follow me. The recording continued playing, damning statement after damning statement filling the silence. James lunged for the microphone. "There's been some kind of mistake. The only mistake," I said, my voice carrying across the now silent room as I reached the stage, "was thinking you could steal what I built." I turned to face the audience, many of whom I had known and worked with for years. For those who don't know me, I'm Michael Everett, the founder and rightful CEO of Everett Construction. What you're witnessing is evidence of a coordinated corporate theft orchestrated by my brother and my wife. Security guards approached uncertainly, looking between me and James for direction. Jonathan stepped forward, legal documents in hand. "These gentlemen," he announced, indicating two men in suits who had entered from the back, "are federal marshals with a court order reinstating Mr. Michael Everett as CEO and freezing all company assets pending investigation. They also have warrants for the arrest of James and Elizabeth Everett on charges of fraud, forgery, and securities violations." The marshals moved toward the stage as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elizabeth's face contorted with fury. "You can't do this," she hissed at me. "We had an agreement." "No," I replied, loud enough for the microphone to pick up. "You and James had an agreement. Behind my back. In my house. Using my name." I held up the flash drive that Sarah had given me. "And it's all right here." As the marshals escorted James and Elizabeth from the stage, I turned back to the audience. I founded Everett Construction 15 years ago with a simple premise: build with integrity. Today, I'm reclaiming that mission. To our employees, our clients, our partners, I promise you that the trust you placed in my company will be honored. The room erupted in applause, uncertain at first, then building to a supportive roar. I caught Jonathan's eye from the side of the stage, his slight nod confirming what I already knew. We had won. 3 months later, I sat in my restored office, looking out over the Portland skyline. The company was recovering slowly but surely. Most clients had stayed loyal once the truth came out. The employees had rallied behind me with a dedication that still humbled me. James and Elizabeth were facing multiple federal charges. The divorce was finalized. The house was sold. A chapter closed. Sarah knocked on my door, bringing in the quarterly reports for review. She had been promoted to chief of staff, her loyalty rewarded. Her sister's immigration status was secure, thanks to Jonathan's expertise. "The board meeting starts in 5 minutes," she reminded me. "The new members are looking forward to meeting you." I nodded, gathering my materials. The board had been completely restructured. No more family members, no more opportunities for the kind of betrayal I had experienced. Just experienced professionals committed to the company's success. As I walked toward the boardroom, I passed the company mission statement newly engraved on the wall, built with integrity by my own hands. A reminder, every day, of what I had created, lost, and reclaimed. A reminder that some things, once built, cannot be truly stolen, not if you're willing to fight for them. Would you have exposed your family publicly like I did, or sought a quieter resolution to protect the family name? Was I right to choose justice over privacy?